You're not trained before you go to war how to snap out of it. If I would have not been looking at dead bodies, I would have been looking at the road. I could have swerved. And then she would have swerved. My second deployment to Iraq, here comes this girl with glasses and brown hair. Me and Ashley Moyer were best friends. When I wanted to annoy her, I would put on Britney Spears or the Spice Girls to wake her up. Yes, we spent way too much time together. It was wonderful. 3 months later, we were on a patrol. I was the front truck and she was behind me, and she always complimented me because I drove fast. She liked how I drove. And so we were driving from checkpoint to checkpoint just to waste time, just to check on the Iraqi police stations. Remember that the last time we drove down the street, we found dead bodies, and we had to pick them up and take them to the morgue. Instead of looking on the road, looking for an IED, I was looking to the side. And so I don't know if I missed it or not, but we were only driving like 15 miles per hour, and we were driving really slow. And I rolled over it, nothing happened, and then looked behind me, and their truck was upside down and on fire, and I stopped the vehicle as fast as possible, and I screamed at Sergeant Guerra. I said, "Their truck is on fire." And he said, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" "Their truck has been hit. Their truck has been hit." I just ran back to their truck as fast as possible. And before I could get to it, Sergeant Gerhardt grabbed my vest from the back and he threw me back. He said, "Man, you can't go any farther. You can't save them." And all I saw was a black hole where Ashley's body should have been. For the next 3 days, I was in a coma. I couldn't wake up. I wasn't doing so well and couldn't go back to duty. It's such a mess. Couldn't snap out of it. Guilt came out. It's a 50-pound bomb. You see something like that. I didn't want to talk to people. I didn't want to go to the grocery store. I just wanted to live in my depressed little bubble.
Well, welcome back. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, about 2 million American adults and children suffer from a TBI annually. 50,000 patients a year die in the United States as a result of TBI. Every 15 seconds, one American man, woman, or child will sustain a significant traumatic brain injury. And the direct medical costs and indirect costs for traumatic brain injury is totaling $60 billion a year. Now, you may know someone currently suffering from, or you yourself may be suffering from one, and don't even know it. And here to help us understand this, please welcome the former director of the Defense and Veterans Brain Injury Center, Col Sidney Hinds. Welcome. Thank you so much, Colonel, for being here, sir.
I'm very honored to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
No, sir, this is one of these issues. I'm so glad that I have you here in uniform, because America, when they hear the word TBI right now, they only think one thing: soldier. They hear the word CTE, they hear football player. They hear the word concussion, they never think woman. And I like the fact that we're now throwing everybody's eyes off right now, because I've got a colonel in the military sitting here with 2 women who are not in uniform right now. One was in uniform, talking about a silent killer. That, you know, as we talk about the numbers right now in our military of 20 to 22 soldiers a day committing suicide, I wonder often how many of them are suffering from some psychological trauma that was based on their TBI. That's a long stretch in some ways, but not a long stretch. Why don't you tell us a little bit what you know? Again, thank you for being here. Let's talk about how people should not only think that this is a military problem, it's also a civilian problem as well.
Well, I think you bring up a number of points that we've been trying to address over the past 15, 16 years in regards to traumatic brain injury and post-traumatic stress. What we do know on the TBI side is that since 2000, over 340,000 service members have had a TBI. And that can be from the milder concussion type all the way to the severe and penetrating. The things that really stick out is that this isn't just a combat problem. This is a problem that affects us back here at home in Garrison. And we know this because over 80% of our TBIs are diagnosed back at the in-home or at-home or in Garrison setting.
And most people don't know that about 30,000 TBIs occur every year, even when we're not in a war. Just from training and base, right? Somewhere around there.
Americans, we really want to be active, and we want to promote that because that's all part of overall health. And so we engage in activities that could be risky for head injuries. And we want to be mindful of that and take all the preventions that we can and precautions, but also be practical about it, that accidents do happen, and be prepared for that.
All right, we're going to talk a little bit more in general about TBI a little later on the show, but I really wanted you to come out for a minute while we have an opportunity to sit here with two young ladies who externally look this way, but we know what's going on inside. Right. And how do we get more at home to seek help, more at home to recognize that they even have the problem, and maybe how do we get the two of them to understand that there's so much more that they both should be doing right now?
You bring up a great point. If you've sustained a concussion, unless someone's watched it, and sometimes even when someone has seen it, they may not know what to do. They may ask a question and say, oh, how are you doing? Well, if you've sustained a concussion, your thinking may be a little bit off. And so, we really are acting on a incidence-based versus a symptoms-based approach. Gotcha. So if you've been in a potentially concussive TBI event, you need to be evaluated.
At home, people aren't even paying attention to the fact that we're walking around and every 15 seconds something like this has happened to a person, right?
And a lot of people don't go get evaluated. And those who do get evaluated, approximately 50% don't follow up. And what we need to tell folks is that a supervised progressive return after that initial evaluation helps you get back to your baseline, because you want to get identified as early as possible. You want to get a diagnosis so you can get treatment as early as possible, get the education you need to get you back on the road to recovery. And while rest is still part of the active evaluation and recovery process, it's not the rest that you and I grew up with, where go home, sleep it off. It's that progressive return, supervised, tailored approach to the person who has a concussion. Because if we know anything, when it comes to concussions, one size doesn't fit all. Not everybody gets the same constellation of symptoms. And so while on the research side we're trying to figure out how we can predict that and then hopefully know what interventions need to happen and prognosis, until we have that, what we do know is that a progressive return to activity, not a rest, but a progressive return to activity where you're involved with your clinicians, helps you get the evaluation you need, helps you get the treatment that you need to hopefully reduce the amount of folks that have chronic symptoms.
I have time for maybe one more question. Let me ask this one. Both ladies just sat here on this stage and have talked to me about a myriad of symptoms that are still going on. Seizures, pass out, sometimes a little blank out. This one can be home, light, it's still hitting her now, really, really making her retreat. There are the psychosomatic effects from, emotional lability maybe that's going on here. What should they be doing right now? Should they be reaching out, not to just another concussive doctor who said you had one? There are things that they can be doing, right?
Absolutely, and I think it's engaging. Not only does a general population need to be educated, our providers, our clinicians out there need to be educated on concussion and be up to date on the most scientifically proven treatments that are out there so that folks don't suffer. And many people don't have someone who can accompany them to their appointments to help them be advocates. But if your clinician isn't providing you the care that you need to make sure that, or help your loved one get to the right place to address the symptoms that you have.
Take a break, we'll be back right after this. As you've heard from our guests, traumatic brain injury can cause many symptoms, including balance disorders. The only way we're going to be able to learn if treatments work to address these symptoms is through scientific clinical trial. If you, a family member, or a friend have chronic balance disorder that is a result of a mild or moderate traumatic brain injury due to sports, military service, slips, trips, or falls, they may be eligible to participate in a clinical trial for an investigational device being developed to treat balance disorder. Please visit braininjurytrial.com/livingwell or call 1-877-847-4290 for more information.